YouTube. It is the start of my cringe content creator arc. You probably don't know me. And you've probably never seen it in my videos, but that's okay. Because you're gonna know more about me than you ever wanted to soon enough. So I thought, for the first video, something interesting to do would be to cover the benchmark. Now that every other content creator in the world has done it, and I'm gonna be buried by the algorithm, so no one will have to see this. Amazing idea. So with that out of the way, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing in the benchmark that you see is the Gunbreaker does their AoE spender, Faded Circle, I think it's called. And then immediately follows up with another explosion attack, which pretty obviously looks like a burst strike into hypervelocity. So just using continuation, I actually really like this. It makes AoE a little bit more interesting, which has always been a problem with Final Fantasy XIV. AoE is just very boring. This makes it more interesting without actually adding any buttons, because continuation already exists, you're just adding it to Faded Circle. Hey, that's a change. I really like this. I hope they keep it up. The Paladin section is kind of disappointing because you don't really see much. It honestly kind of just looks like a Requiescat upgrade because of the way the Paladin holds the sword up and then brings it down. Making it a cleave is fine. That just makes it more useful in AoE situations. I really hope this is not a second Requiescat button. Samurai has that problem a lot where they just keep adding new buttons for AoE versions of things that just don't need to exist. Just make the original have AoE fall off. So hopefully this is just a Requiescat upgrade. And that's all it does. It just makes Requiescat a clean footy so you can use it in AoE more. Well, you could use it to do more AoE damage. Dark Knight is kind of interesting because I've seen a few people mention this is a 1, 2, 3 upgrade, but earlier in the benchmark, you can actually see the Dark Knight from above doing a hard slash and a siphon strike. So this isn't just a visual upgrade. So I'm really hoping this isn't just an OGCD and 1, 2, 3 looks different, because Dark Knight has a real problem with how boring it feels outside of the 2-minute window. You just 1, 2, 3 blood spiller. And that's it. You don't have any other real things to worry about besides just waiting for your cooldowns to cycle. There's no alternate combos. There's no dot to manage. The only real thing you have to do is look at your mana. So if this is a new ability that gives you the kind of like a Requiescat analog for Paladin, and then it gives you a new combo on top of that, that might be interesting. But Dark Knight is obsessively button bloated. It has so many buttons now, it really doesn't need Doom abilities. So, unless there's some pretty heavy cuts, I honestly think this is just Blood Weapon, and it turns your 1, 2, 3 into new animations. Kinda boring, but it works. Finally, at the very end, we get to Warrior, and kind of a low note to end on, because this is very obviously the Vengeance animation. It's just Vengeance Plus. It does a little bit extra now. Kind of unfortunate that's what we had to stop on, but hey, that's what it is. It just looks like a better Vengeance, which, cool, Warrior is already the best healer in the game. Might as well give them even more defensive cooldowns, right? I'm sure it's a point where you'll get a raise in the DPS limit break, because why not? Okay, now we're at Summoner, and Summoner is really interesting to examine for a lot of really weird reasons. I see a lot of people because it's very electric and they say it's Renew spell. But the problem with that is you don't see Carbuncle. Ever. Nor do you see Renew or the electric attack going off on the boss except for the one the summoner did. If it was a primal summon, you would see either the lingering effect or you would see the pet respawning because Carbuncle dies whenever you gem or demi summon. Because Carbuncle is not here, this also means they didn't just summon Renew off screen and then come in to do the attack because Carbuncle would still be there. And I seriously doubt they took the effort to bring up the vestigial pet menu and just sent Carbuncle to go stand off in the corner where nobody could see it. This indicates to me that Carbuncle is probably dead. I said before that they're probably gonna kill the rat because of all the problems demi summoning is introduced and just pretend like that's fixed it. And it actually seems like that's what's going to happen. Kind of unfortunate that tech control is now completely on instead of just being like vestigial nothingness, but at least this way you'll get your defensive cooldown to work. I don't think this is a remove ability so much as it is a faster upgrade, just because if it was a remove upgrade, that would probably be a level 100 thing, and I don't think they've put any capstones in the benchmark. It would be pretty obvious, I think, when you have a capstone ability compared to just some random animation upgrade, so that's why I think this is a faster. But either way, the fact that Carbuncle is not here is concerning, and probably shows the way that Summoner is going to be designed in Endwalker, which means, hey, Summoner got another rework for the 5th expansion in a row. Good job, Summoner. Red Mage is actually kind of interesting because you see the Embolden effect to go off right before they switch to the Red Mage, so this could actually be like an Embolden follow-up attack, which I think the way Red Mage rotation works in Endwalker would be interesting because a lot of the time you do Embolden right after you start a melee phase, I believe, because you can use Magnification to get a second one and fit both of them in the one window. If this is a GCD follow-up to Embolden, that would kind of break that double melee phase 2 minute. So maybe a little bit of a Red Mage rework. This isn't a finisher. We're not gonna go like Holy Resolution, Scorch, new big AoE attack. That would be kind of weird. It could be an Impact upgrade. Impact is the Red Mage AoE attack, the big one. I kind of doubt it because it immediately followed a Embolden on a single target. This might be overanalyzing the benchmark. The benchmark is just to show off stuff. It's not to basically show real gameplay. But it is interesting that it immediately followed the Embolden like that. So it could be a follow-up. Black Mage follows Sage, and it's kind of hard to say. This could just be like a Thunder 4 upgrade, because it is very thundery. I've seen a few people in threads suggest this could just be a new attack. I'm not really sure where you would put a new attack unless you just shove it into Ice Phase, because nothing really matters, and the more stuff you put there, the less you have to care about server ticks. So that could be an interesting upgrade, although I almost never run into server tick problems when I just put a Xenolossi in there. It does have a cast time, so it's not a foul upgrade. Foul is instant cast if you get a trait for Black Mage, so that was my first thought. Turns out to not be that. Probably just a Thunder 4 upgrade, but visual upgrades are fine. Making things look new is a nice way to get at least a couple months of freshness into a job before the routine sets back in. So next is Dragoon, and honestly this is kind of a wild card. Nobody can even begin to figure out what to say is because Dragoon has already been confirmed for getting a rework with Astrologian in this expansion, so could be literally anything. My first thought was like a Stardiver replacement, which I was really not hoping for. But it doesn't look like the Dragoon is actually in Life of the Dragon at all, so probably not Stardiver. Might be something with First Mind as a rework, but that's a line AoE. This is pretty obviously a circle. Like I said, impossible to tell. The rework makes this a complete wild card. Does look cool now. Samurai is next, and I've seen a lot of people say this is Kaiten. It's not Kaiten, it's the Iki Shurten animation. I'm sorry guys, you're gonna have to let Kaiten go, it's dead. Just let it go. It's Iki Shurten into a spinning cleave attack, which makes me think this might be an Ogi Namakiri upgrade. Which would be kind of weird because Ogi Namakiri has a follow-up attack if the first time you use it, so maybe that's just condensed in. Hopefully they compress these buttons too, because you can't use Ogi Namakiri without first using Iki Shurten. So please, Square Enix, just merge these buttons. There's no reason to have 2 buttons when they're completely dependent on each other and cannot be used out of order. It's like I was saying with Gunbreaker. You don't need to add new buttons if one button can just fill both roles. It really cuts down on bloat, and Samurai has a real problem with button bloat. But the big thing about Ninja is this is obviously an upgrade to Health Frog Medium. So send it Health Frog Large or Health Frog Medium well. I'm not sure. What do you think? And now we get to the fun stuff for me, because there is a lot to analyze on the new Reaper ability. The first is that the Reaper is in Enshroud. which is very interesting because Enshroud actually turns off all of your other abilities except for Harvest Moon, I think, and Circle of Death. So this has to be a new attack for Enshroud, and it looks like it's probably a Communio upgrade because it's a big circle and Communio is the only circular attack that Reaper has in Enshroud. This could just be a new ability. You can't really trust that Enshrouded ends after this ability goes off because you can just manually end Enshroud by just tapping one of your buttons 5 times in a row. You don't actually have to use Communio to end it. So that could be kind of a red herring. But I think that the fact that Enshroud immediately ended after this ability went off and it's a big circle makes this a Communio upgrade, which would be really interesting. It doesn't look like the Reaper actually had a cast bar, they just immediately went into the animation. And having a cast bar on Communio is so annoying, especially with how frequently Square Enix likes to dump mechanics on the 2-minute window. This makes it way more useful for moving around when you're trying to do mechanics, stop randomly into a 1.5 second cast bar or just do nothing. Because like I said, Enshroud turns off all your other buttons. You can't do anything when you're in Enshroud. We're down to Monk, which doesn't really seem that interesting to analyze. I think it's too flashy to be a GCD upgrade, because that would probably mean they have to do new animations for every Monk GCD, and I don't feel like that would be quite as high on the priority list. So I feel like this is just a trade upgrade for something, like maybe a Naughty or a Steel Peak, like the Naughties from your Perfect Balance. I almost said it was the Hadouken, but the Hadouken is a circular AoE on you, so not a mine attack, which is what this looks like. So not that. It just seems like a OGCD upgrade to me. Either that or a Perfect Balance attack. So, pretty simple, but new animation. The dancer animation is actually kind of interesting because at the very end it very obviously becomes a circle, which makes me think this is a Saber Dance upgrade. Saber Dance is the only turreted circular effect Dancer has aside from Fan Dance 3, which is on them. And what's interesting about this is it has the same visual flair as the Dancer Limit Break 3, where all the flowers just explode in these lines. These little cutting lines. That's the exact animation we see here. So that actually kind of makes me wonder if they're trying to work Limit Break 3 visuals into the classes more to make them more thematic, because a lot of limit breaks, they just kind of happen and you rarely see them. So working more of that aesthetic into these big finishers for your normal gameplay, I think would be a really interesting way to let players feel like they're getting that kind of effect more often without having to make fights that just require specific limit breaks all the time. Machinist honestly feels like a meme, because the last expansion, the only thing new Machinist really got was Buzzsaw, Chainsaw, actually I think it's called. And now you get Chainsaw too. Hopefully this isn't the second Chainsaw button, but I wouldn't really care because I don't have that many buttons to use on Machinist anyways. My hotbars have a few open empty spots. Maybe it's an AoE version of Chainsaw. Maybe it's a full Chainsaw attack. It's kinda hard to tell, because the Machinist is off screen for a couple seconds, so they could have used it as a GCB before then, but it just looks like muscle too. I'm sorry, Machinist. One day you'll get that rework that people promised you were gonna get after that first rework. You'll get more stuff eventually. One day. Moving on to Bard, and it's kind of hard to say. This doesn't very obviously look like a circle effect at the very end of the animation. As far as I know, I checked this earlier, but the only circle effect Bard has is Shadow Bite. So this could be a Shadow Bite upgrade, but the animation feels so wildly different from Shadow Bite right now. I'm not entirely convinced that this isn't just a new ability. I feel like Bard could probably fit 1 or 2 more new buttons without too much of a problem. But if it is a Shadow Bite upgrade, that's fine because it makes it look more in line with the rest of Bard's abilities, very bright and flashy, instead of Shadow Bite being very dark and subdued. So if that's what it is, kinda sucks. It's not anything interesting, but it is a visual upgrade to kind of tie that thingy back into Bard. Like I said about Dragoon, Astrologian is a complete wildcard. It got reworked. We don't know what it's gonna look like. It could be literally anything. This could be a shield, this could be a heal over time, it could be a buff, it could just be a sparkly effect that makes you feel good about yourself, it could be literally anything. Without knowing what the Astro rework is, there's no way we could say what this ability does. Besides, it just looks pretty, which is all Astro abilities. White Mage is really interesting because it has a cast bar right before the ability goes off, which eliminates it being a Lily ability. I thought it was a Lily upgrade, but Lily spells are all instant, so that can't be it. This might be something more in line with the Dancer thing I was talking about earlier, where they're doing visual consolidation. Like, this could just be a Medica or Medica 2 upgrade, where it's more Lily-ish, so it looks like the Lily part of your kit. That would be a nice upgrade to keep White Mage a little bit more thematic with what they built it into, and it would be an interesting way to upgrade the visuals. Unfortunately, that's all I can really say, I guess it just looks like it heals people, but not being able to see if it has any riders attached to it. We can't know if there's also a buff, if there's also a heal over time, if it's just a big heal bomb like Tier 3. That's all we can really say. Oh, would you look at that? It looks like Scholar is stealing more of the aesthetics that I want. First they got fairies, now they got cogwheels, which means they're taking the Alexander aesthetic. Great. Probably an AoE chain stratagem. You hear the sound effect for chain triggering at some point in this animation, which would be a fantastic upgrade. A lot of these feel like kind of AoE upgrades, which are nice because AoE is a very weak point in Final Fantasy XIV. It's just very, very boring. There's little depth to it. Most of the depth is in single-player encounters when fighting bosses. And AoE is kind of this afterthought, which is kind of a shame because a lot of dungeons have AoE in it, and the majority of the dungeons should not be boring to play. So, just having an AoE chain stratagem doesn't really change anything, but it does make you feel a bit more impactful in a trash setting where you can just put AoEs on, or put a debuff on multiple enemies to make your allies crit more. And like I said, the aesthetics are great, but stop letting Scholar take all the stuff I want. Sage is kind of interesting because how close the Sage is to the monster. This could just be a Phlegma upgrade, or it could be a Toxicon upgrade. One thing I'm kind of curious about is there's a lot of screen shake at various cast moments in this benchmark, and I'm wondering if that's just a cinematic thing they did to make it look cool, but that's actually something they're having. Screen shake is a really cheap way to make an ability feel more impactful than what it could really be. This is something that I really noticed in Pandemonium 10 Savage, because his body is so far away, you actually don't get the normal screen shake from Communio, and it makes it feel really, really boring as a result. So, if they are adding more screen shakes, that would be fantastic. It's a really cheap way to make abilities feel more impactful, so I would kind of like to see more of it on these big flashy attacks. We get our first look at Viper in the benchmark. And one of the interesting things I noticed about this is that there's an instant transition between attacks between the twin sword version and the staff variant. And as we'll see later in the benchmark, there's several twin sword attacks in their obvious burst phase, and that makes me think that a lot of the information going on Viper saying that the staff version was going to be like the higher burst phase isn't necessarily true. It looks like you morph in between them pretty much. Not necessarily at random, but just whenever the rotation says you're gonna morph. It doesn't seem like it's dependent on any kind of burst phase. Although there is a very obvious whip and hold animation after the boss dies, so maybe the staff is just the default version and the twin blades are actually the burst phase. That would be kind of a weird inversion given the way the weapons sit on your back. Now we get to the second time you see Viper, and it's really interesting. This is what I talked about earlier, where you see the trance buff, the Final Fantasy IX trance, and you do these sequence of attacks, but your weapon isn't the twin sword stance, which is really, really interesting because it makes me think that twin sword is actually your DPS stance and the staff is just the basic. Or it could just be like kind of Dragoon, where you get the one rotation and then you swap to another one. Could be either one of those. We don't really have a job overview yet, so I can't say for sure. The limit break going into that is actually interesting. That starts in staff, and the very end you break into the two swords and then strike down, which I think overall this animation is kind of boring. I'm not really feeling it, but that final bit where it looks like Viper fangs coming down is pretty slick. Another problem I've had with the Viper in the benchmark is that a lot of the staff animations feel over-animated. Like, the staff doesn't really move a lot much, but you have these crazy animations that just double loop, so it looks really weird when you're looking at the weapon, as compared to looking at the visual effects. I kinda hope they change that a little bit, but if not, I'm sure it'll be fine. Unfortunately, following new job is the other new job, Pictomancer, and literally nothing new. We've already seen the Icicle attack, we've seen the removal beam, there's just nothing new here to analyze. it's Pictomancer. You paint stuff and it does stuff. That's all we can really say at this point. And with that, that's every new class and the abilities that we got to see from the benchmark. Several of them look like just animation upgrades, which are fine. We won't be able to see any new, real job changes until the media tour and the life letter that covers it in the future. But it was interesting to look at this, kind of guess at what they're doing. It does seem like there's a lot more animation upgrades to kind of tie job themes together, which I think is a really good thing. A lot of jobs are kind of all over the place with animations, and that's a really nice upgrade. There was some fun speculation to be had with things like Summoner and Reaper, but we'll have to see for sure in the future. If you enjoyed this, make sure to follow me on YouTube because there will be more videos. I'm going to be doing a Summoner and Blue Mage rant very soon. If you'd like to see more of my shenanigans live, I stream on Twitch, usually Tuesday to Friday at 6 p.m. EST, and hope to see you there.